All right, Sisters fans. Now, this is just a question I wanted to ask you all. Now, look, I'm well aware there are the Destin fans who want Danny and Preston back together no matter what. That's one thing I've noticed after doing, these reviews over the years is that there are diehard fans of certain, pairings that, regardless of the story, they want two particular characters to be together no matter what, even if it makes zero sense as to how these two, got back together. Now, last week I talked about how I just felt like Jonah was reintroduced into the series for nothing more than, bringing Preston and Danny back together. But in the long run, it just feels so unearned, given the fact that, yes, the Jonah stuff is awful, and no, I'm not even pointing the finger at Danny like, oh, it's her fault. No, I'm just talking about like the particular story beats of last week's episode. I don't know what's worse, the whole Jonah showing up and, beating on Danny and whatnot. And no, I'm not making light of domestic violence. Hear me out. I'm talking about particular story beats versus Preston coming back and saving Danny. But at the same time, it just, this dude has a whole fiance. How does that look for him to be staying with another woman that his fiance seemingly is aware of the fact that, oh, Preston loves this woman? I don't know. It just seems so forced. I think if Mindy never existed, or the fact that Preston, not only got rejected by Danny, but then proposed to another woman and now is intending to stay with Danny, there are just so many reasons why it just feels sloppy. It's getting to the point where it's reaching the same level of nauseating, coincidences as the Calvin and Sabrina thing, like I talked about last week. They just need to stop trying to make the Calvin and Sabrina pairing a thing. Like I said before, Maurice is just highly inconsistent. One episode, you know what, Sabrina, I'm tired of you and Calvin just going back and forth, back and forth. Or, Calvin, you and Sabrina, this nonsense. Y'all need to grow up, and if you're not going to see each other, just be with other people because I'm sick of it. He'll say that one episode, within the very next episode. So, are you going to call him, or are you going to call her? Or that person that he's in love with you, she's in love with you. It is so freaking stupid. I'm just throwing it out here though. I don't it's really messed up because, look, I'm not saying that he should instantly side with Bio, but I'm surprised Maurice would even say that about Calvin to Sabrina, considering you would think he would be team Bio since Bio was the one that bailed his behind out of jail. So, hey, you ought to be with that African. He got the money, and obviously he's clearly head over heels for you if he would lend the money to bail me out, and he barely knows me as a favor to you. I mean, that's what you would think he would go with that, but Tyler's once again showing the lazy Tyler Perryisms, which is, oh, we're going to force these two people back together. And it's like, I don't know. You know how, like, the cast talk about how they have chemistry and they just click together? That seems more apparent in their real life interactions on social media and whatnot and in interviews, as opposed to the sisters' chemistry on camera. I feel the same about these particular pairings, like Calvin and Sabrina, or Andy and Gary. And in this particular situation, I hate to say it, Danny and Preston, they had something special leading towards the end of season 1 and, a majority of season 2, but then it just got way too funky between them. And I just feel like there's just been way too much going down, particularly on Danny's side. And it's just like Tyler decided to randomly insert some Preston nonsense only for Danny to have some evidence on her side. So when she's talking smack about Preston and how he acts, there's something to back it up, because there's only so many times you can use the, oh, you come over unannounced, before it's just like, Danny, Preston coming over unannounced isn't as bad as the multiple bodies you stacked up in your apartment every time he's come around and caught you with another man. So now it's like, oh yeah, well, we need to throw in this Preston having a fiance and staying with Danny. That way, he doesn't look like a picture perfect cowboy, by comparison. But the point of this video is the fact that I honestly don't think that just because Preston saved Danny's life, that automatically means that they should be together. It's just like I was saying And look, if you want to go back through my sisters, oh yeah, I just noticed I'm over 1,800 sisters videos on this channel. Holy crap. You'll have to do some scrolling though. Basically, go to my sister's playlist and go back to season 1. I did not vouch for Zach and Karen to get back together after Zach saved her life from Aaron's dead ex-wife's brother, Bean, who broke into Karen's apartment, just like Jonah did to Danni, tried to kill her. Zach showed up. He ended up getting stabbed. As a result, Karen took out the gun and then, shot at, Bean like what, 3 times or something like that. So basically, Zach saved her life. Guess what she did? She picked Aaron. Now, like I said before, I'm not saying she was obligated to pick Zach, but at the same time, hey, that's the way it is. I mean, you would think that taking that knife would have made up for everything Zach did to her at that point, but whatever. But yeah, so just because Preston saved Danni's life doesn't mean that they need to be together. I mean, I'm not even going to apologize for that. That's just the way I feel about it. It's just that you can't really make me root for this pairing when there's just so much that's going on, not to mention what happened, not too long beforehand. Danni hasn't shown herself to be a one-man kind of woman. Not to mention, Preston is just randomly throwing everything he could think of at Danni in order to get her to love him, despite the fact that, as he stated, when I was going on those dates with those other women, I just kept asking myself, why is it so easy with them, but so hard with you? And it's like, well, Preston, you just answered your own question. If clearly you are getting out of these women within 1 or 2 dates what you can't even drag out of Danni, then what's the point of pursuing her? Really. And that's the thing about these women. Like, anytime these men get sick and tired of running after them, trying to get them to like settle down in a relationship or whatever, and they either have eyes for another man or they start getting that attitude and don't want to act all loving and kind and whatnot, and the men decide to go pursue other women, all of a sudden they're the villains. They're the ones who are low down, no good men who left them hurt. And it's like, no, it's like because the man wanted better for himself, all of a sudden he's the bad guy. That doesn't make any sense. And when it comes to Preston, I'm just sitting there like, man, not only do you have this, Mindy who's been waiting for you to, commit to her, but I mean, it just makes him look so bad. I mean, remember on Zatima when Bryce talked about how he he has a fetish for big women? It's kind of like, how some people look at, or Danni, I think at one point looked at Preston like, what was it? His stepbrothers talked about how he wanted to date a black woman or something like that just to see what it was like. It's just one of those things where, I think Preston just needs to move on. It's looking really sad at this point. I feel like there are so many different comparisons to the other men in this show. So Preston just can't seem to let go because apparently he's so in love with Danni. And it's just like, but you have this other woman who's waiting for you to right now. Just go be with her. Then you have Gary, who at this point, it's just like, he just hates to lose, which is so stupid. He'll do anything to take any other man off the board if it means keeping Andy for himself. But like that sex therapist said, it's like, I mean, even when you get with her, it doesn't matter because you only like the thrill of the chase. When it comes to Aaron, I don't know what his thing is, but apparently he loves, like, breaking women down emotionally until they get crazy, and then he acts all like, oh, I don't know what happened to them. It's just weird. But yeah, that's really all I got to say about this particular video. And I mean, hell, I already talked about Calvin. So yeah, personally, I do not think that these two need to be together just simply because of the fact that he saved her life. I mean, this is the result of Danni's own bad choices. So yeah. All right, well, like and subscribe, follow me on social media, and I'll catch you in the next one.